All right, hey guys, how's everyone doing? We are just going to be starting a one-on-one lesson with Fundy. Fundy, thanks for joining.
Hello.
So you're playing PogChamps, which starts this weekend.
I think it does. I think my first match is the 30th. Yeah.
And how are you feeling about it?
Terrified. I don't know. I feel like I can win, but at the same time, it's gonna take a little bit.
Yeah.
It's gonna take a little bit of training, a little bit of practice, which is what we're doing right now.
Absolutely. I hope I can be of help. I mean, it's like, okay, we're a few days away, right? We're not going to just change your chess overnight, but I hope I can give you at least some tips, some guidance that you can use for these next few days. And then from then on, like, you know, hopefully your chess career doesn't end with PogChamps 4, and you can continue to grow.
That's the goal. Yep.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Like I told you, I mentioned I was just taking a brief look at some of your games, and yeah, I noticed, like, you know, tactically, you're very sharp, and I mean, your puzzle rating, you said like 2,400, right?
Yeah.
So that's very good. Like that, I mean, to me, that means like you have a lot of potential to grow, like from your current rating.
Yes.
And but okay, like rapid and blitz chess especially, obviously it's more than just about like the tactics. It's also time management, strategy, openings, end games, like so many things.
Terrifying aspect, yeah.
Right, but
scary parts.
It's good to see that tactically I think you're doing great. I want to talk about one thing in the opening, and then I would love to just observe you playing a rapid game or two. One thing I noticed you're doing quite often in your game. So I saw you had a game like this. It was d4, d5. You were playing black. Your opponent played e3. We played knight c6. And they played bishop b5. And I think you just really quickly played a6 in response to this.
Yeah.
And I noticed this is something you like to do quite often. Like when you get pinned, you tend to just immediately challenge this piece that's pinning you. Mm-hmm. Is that fair to say? Do you feel like this is...
Well, pretty much, yeah, it's probably what I would do again if it was a game. There's no real thought behind it. Yeah, I mean, I do see that if the knight gets taken, you get like stacked pawns. But on the other hand, I don't know. there's no real strat I follow at the openings. I don't really have a specific opening that I follow, no specific routine.
Gotcha.
Yeah, there's no true reason behind it.
Okay, so that's why I bring it up, because it's a very common thing players do around your level. And I would say these moves are actually kind of tricky to judge, because sometimes they're very useful. Sometimes they actually don't help us that much. So let's say, for example, you made another developing move, like you bring your other knight out. Right. If white takes on c6, then, okay, we get the same structure. So double pawns, not the best thing, but white had to give up their bishop, so that's kind of a plus for you. So we can say this is like a balanced trade. And then the question is, like, which move would you rather have? Would you rather have this knight move, or...
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Yeah, the knight is a lot better there.
Yeah, exactly. And not just like the tempo, like the knight is more useful, but actually this a6 square, your bishop wants it. Right? If you get your bishop to this square, let's say like knight f3, you play bishop a6, and you prevent your opponent from castling. This is very annoying for white. Just like that. Yeah. So that's not to say this a6 move is always bad. There's many openings and positions where you do want to play it. So just to give you some kind of like, I guess, rule of thumb, if you're worried about this pin, like let's say for example, we'll switch up the position a little bit. Let's say you play this move queen d7, which is not a good move, but let's just say for example, and then white plays like knight c3. Okay, and at this point you're realizing that like if you give your opponent some time, they're going to play knight f3 next, and then they're going to play knight e5, and then black's going to be in real trouble.
Yeah.
So here is a moment where the situation is like, oh, you need to resolve this pin quickly. You need to just figure this out as soon as possible. So this would be a very good moment for a6 so that you're not getting hit with this like super fast attack, knight f3, knight e5.
Yeah.
And then
that makes sense.
Yeah, and then white is like forced to either give up the pin or drop the bishop back, or you could play b5 and break the pin, and then you're kind of home free. Whereas here, okay, let's say we play knight f6, knight f3. If you really wanted to break this pin, what would be another way to unpin your knight?
You can do, I guess, bishop to d7.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would prefer this move to a6, mainly because you're playing with your pieces. Like, pieces are going to be much more valuable to develop than pawns. And yeah, actually now knight e5, you can even take this one and
yeah,
doing quite well. If white takes on d7, let me test you real quick here. How should we recapture?
Definitely with the knight.
Which one?
E5, sorry, E5.
Absolutely. Yeah, and then you save your knight, and we snagged a piece in the process. Mm-hmm. Okay, let me give you a different example. Let's say, for argument's sake, white plays c4, we play e6. There are many other moves, but these are normal. Let's say they go bishop g5. We play bishop e7 because we want to develop the bishop and also kind of quickly neutralize the pin. And then here white goes knight f3. So here this move h6, I would say, is actually very useful for a couple of reasons. Number one, yeah, go ahead.
It makes an escape square in advance when you castle, right?
No, exactly right. This is like a super deep point, but one that's very useful. You get this move in and you're much less likely to get back rank mated. I mean, no guarantee still, but like much less likely. Mm-hmm. The other nice thing is that you do kind of clarify what white wants to do. If they trade on f6, then okay, you happily take back with your bishop and you're good here. And if they retreat, it's kind of a subtle point, but now this bishop loses the right to come back to, let's say, the other side of the board. It's now committed to the king side, which is totally fine. Like, white still has, I think, a very normal position, but
would pawn to g5 be a bad move here?
Okay, so that's, another, let's say, controversial decision. There are many cases where it's a decent move, but I would say this is one where it's like you want to understand the drawbacks and then kind of decide on a case-by-case basis. So what is the drawback behind this move?
Seem great, right? Well, you really open up if you end up castling kingside, right? It becomes really open.
Exactly right. Yeah, if you end up castling kingside, then these pawns are like a very easy target for your opponent, and they can try to prepare maybe some kind of sacrifice, or they can try to attack you with the h-pawn. And yeah, basically it's weakening.
Yeah.
But there are also cases where it's a good move. Let's say, for example, you started with this one, and then your opponent played g3. Now you're trapping the bishop.
No, I definitely, now exactly. Now he's no escape square. Yeah.
Right, so it's like, it's one of those things, I mean, like, as you get stronger in chess, you realize there's a lot of rules, there's a lot of, like, principles, but there's just as many exceptions. So it's like, kind of just understanding the pros and cons. But yeah, just to give you, let's say, some kind of guideline, unless you get something immediate and tactical, I would say probably not worth it, especially if you're castling kingside. Okay, so that's just one quick thing, because I noticed you had like maybe 3-4 games, it felt like we're kind of playing these moves on autopilot, but almost always actually there is kind of a choice to be had there, and maybe you have something more useful, something you can develop, and you can get kind of like a slightly better version of the same opening.
Yeah. I think it mainly comes down to like a lot of times in previous games where, well, as example, now I can spot like whether or not it's good. In actual games, I always seem like whenever I put this much thought process into every single move that I make and every single move my opponent makes, I end up having very little time if I spend as much time thinking about every single move, right?
Yes.
And that's why usually I'll probably not do the same thing I would do when I think about it a little bit longer.
Right. Yeah, that's one of the hardest things about Blitz and Rapid is that you really just don't have a lot of time.
Yeah.
I'm generally on the side of like, yeah, it's better to like spend time and make sure you're not blundering and looking for possible mistakes from the opponent, like maybe they hung something and you can take advantage. But chess is also a very practical game where you might have a good position, but if you're down to 1 minute, it's tough for everybody. It's just very hard to play good when you're down on time. So that's one thing actually I wasn't able to really see in your games is just like the time management, but it sounds like you're usually the one going down on time first. Is that right?
I would not exactly know. I don't play Rapid as much. I usually win Bullet and Blitz on time. So I don't exactly know when it comes down to 10 minutes. We would just have to play one and see how it goes.